All right. Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to today's bonus boot camp course. Here at Best Homes, we have a boot camp every Tuesday at 11 a.m. With the exception of the week we do a meeting, which is the second Tuesday of each month. In the boot camp, its goal is to have a skill building subject. And it's great for new agents, such as writing contracts, or for pillars that you've never maybe touched before or using, such as for sale by owners and stuff like that. So today, our bonus course, it's a little bit outside of most people's comfort zones. Land. Lee Edwards, our success manager over in Prescott, Arizona, has hosted multiple land basic 101 land deal workshops. You can search those here on Facebook under guides, or in the subject bar where you see a little search box, type in land, and you have workshops that have consisted of this subject before. So he is here to kind of chime in from a real estate perspective, but we're going to go into it with best rate home loans with Ricky and George on the land loans, the differences, what to know as a real estate agent. So I will let them take over in a few minutes, but just to let you guys know, today is the last revolving circle of the boot camp. So we will start again the last week of August with the next boot camp course. But for anyone watching on Facebook Live, comment down below or reach out to Ricky himself or George on any questions that might arise later today or throughout today's workshop. And then Lee again is on to give us the real estate perspective and share some additional tips on working with land deals. Land deals have increased quite a bit, so it's very important to know how to work them. You can kind of wing it per se, they say, but I wouldn't suggest it because land deals is no joke. So George and Ricky, it's all you guys with best rate home loans.
Yeah, so I've one of the few things that comes up a lot is land loans. And I've had a ton of agents just continue to bring that to my attention, like, hey, can we do it in-house? And so the answer is we have a product in-house now that we can do for vacant land. And I'm gonna have Ricky share his screen and go over the program.
All right, let me get this set up for us here. All right, so yeah, so we have the land loan product in-house that's available as of today. And so I'm gonna go over the details of it. From this perspective, it's actually not too complicated, which is nice. So taking a look here, highlights of the land loan that we have is that we have loan amounts available from 100,000 to 750,000. So got a good range there. Minimum credit score for these is going to be 660 with a loan to value up to 65%. Nice thing about these two is that there's no prepayment penalties, so they can secure the land through financing and then pay it off at any time. These are for purchase only, and the terms is going to be up to 240 months or 20 years. For properties wise, eligible properties, we can do income producing properties with acreage, recreational properties such as hunting, individual buildable lots, and there's no maximum acreage. It just needs to be supported by an appraisal. Ineligible properties that we can't do, these are going to be the developmental sites slash speculative sites, properties located adjacent to or containing environmental hazards, and anything zoned industrial or commercial. So kind of the scenario example that we could do as of today, let's say we had a purchase of 200,000. That was just to keep it simple, also priced for 200,000. Down payment on that is going to be 35%, in this case, 70,000. So we're looking at a loan amount of 130,000. Interest rate right now, we're looking right around 9%. So in this scenario, I put 9.115. So we'd be looking at a principal and interest payment of 1,180, and that would be on a 20-year term. And really, that's all that we have for the land loans as far as the lending side. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna probe
if
in.
I go
Go ahead,
ahead.
George. Go ahead,
Yeah,
George.
so just to reiterate, it's 35% down for those that aren't familiar with LTV or loan to value. And we can actually close this pretty quickly, which isn't something that Ricky touched on. We can do this anywhere from 30 to 35 days or less.
Awesome. The question is, utilities are definitely one thing that will always come up, and I see that in different land loan packages. Is there a minimum type of utility that has to be on the property?
George, do you have any other info on that? As far as I've seen, I haven't seen a minimum just yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't have that answer. I can get back to you on that and I'll send it to everyone on the utility package.
Awesome. Yeah, I see the hunting thing, which makes me think possibly not needing that. But I've seen sometimes where they say no septics or no wells and such. So that's just a curiosity that I think, especially for some of these rural properties, just knowing that they can or cannot do it, I think that'd be a great thing to know.
Okay, we'll get that for you today.
Awesome. Sergio?
Yes, so I'm looking at the highlights. So that means that no lots less than $135,000 for the asking price.
So the minimum loan amount has to be at least 100,000.
Minimum. Oh, we got a lot of properties in Tonopah that are 1 acre, and but they are like 50,000 per acre. So those are.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't do those at the moment. But I mean, on the flip side, I've seen a lot of land that's over 100,000, especially in the East Valley.
We'll love it. It's great. To the point. Lee, can you give us kind of a general rule of thumb on the differences between land compared to a residential one? I believe there's different contracts for. I mean, if you were to kind of recap it in one, what's the biggest differences? I think that I'd love to know, especially with everything that comes down to the loan, but anything in addition to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely differences in the land contracts. You are looking at some sections that look completely the same, other points that they are totally different. In regards to, you are able to ask for a survey in a purchase contract for the land, where that's not even really mentioned other than the additional clause addendum in a residential purchase scenario. There is a ton more detail and different type of details that are in the spuds, and they have really been increasing that and giving a whole lot more value into the vacant land spuds. One thing that, as I've been speaking with many of the agents here at Best Homes in regards to the contracts and the transactions of land, is there is not one simple inspection type. You don't just call your land home inspector and say, hey, I want you to inspect that. That's not a thing. You really are subbing it out to each individual specialty. So you might be contacting a excavator or a septic company to come out and give you a perk test, which might be anywhere between $500 to $2,000 to do a perk test. Now, if you have blueprints and kind of an idea of where that would go on that property, you can do that. Now, if you are just wanting to buy it, that perk test really isn't going to be that much value to you, because if your home size changes, where you're putting it on the property, that's going to affect how you're able to utilize that perk test. In the same way, you could, if you're running comps on a house, you could do the same kind of scenario with running what an area will do as far as well production. And same thing for septics. You could contact your local municipality and see what the local area is doing in part as far as septics go. So, and then surveys, you want to be contacting your individual areas for your utilities and how far that can be. Because if you're buying a house, you know it's on electricity. If you're buying land, you need to be talking to the power company to see how far that power may or may not need to be ran. I've seen it to where I have a listing right now to where it is about 8 miles to the nearest power source. And that will be costing well over $100,000 to have power as somebody who really, really wanted it. So those are the type of things that there is just not one general inspection, and that seems to be catching a lot of agents off guard in that.
So, and as a real estate agent, you're responsible for doing all that work. So, in the event the property it doesn't have electricity, water, a well, you are to kind of do that homework and search on that on your own, or is that the seller's, or is that the buyer's responsibility?
That's the buyer's responsibility. For me, like what I do if I'm looking at wells, I will share with them 1 or 2 companies that do well drilling and have them talk to those well drillers and ask them those questions. You never want to be the source of that information, because if it's wrong, then it's coming back at you. If you're the source of the source, aka I'm giving you 2 or 3 well driller informations, or 2 or 3 septic companies, or the number of the contractor services for the power company or the water, then you are essentially doing that. Unless if you can get it in writing, aka you email the builder services for the municipality that does septic, and you say, hey, I got all these properties around here that are running on septic that is conventional or septic that is alternative, you're probably going to be running into this. And then you could go and you could ask the a specialist and say, hey, how much? And again, you're doing these in email, so you could just share them to your clients and say, this is the research I did for you. And just sharing with them, this is what I found. Do with it what you will. I always double check, but this is what I am finding for you. So you can go above and beyond, but as a whole, I always want to be the source of a source on any information that the clients are receiving. That way I'm not opening myself up to any liabilities. So just having a good rapport with your different people as far as service providers on that. And they will vary across the valley and across the state. So if somebody in the valley is messaging me in regards to, hey, do I have a good septic person? I'm going to say, where are you at? It's going to be different from Scottsdale to Tonopah to Apache Junction. And even here, I have some people that will not go up to different parts of Yavapai County. It can be a very specific set of areas that people will and will not go to.
And Lee, how do you find these sources? Like if I were to launch, my clients never bought land, they are wanting me to do it, and I've never done it, and I'm supposed to give them sources to find out if how far the electric is. Just as an example, do I just call the applicable utilities here and send them their way? What is that process?
Yeah. I mean, Google is our friend. I mean, seriously, there's been so many times to where it's just like, well, crap, I need to find a septic person up in this remote area, and I start Googling it. If I got dropped down in Apache Junction, that's exactly what I'd be doing. Is I'd go, okay, I'm gonna search the top septic Apache Junction, and I'll start calling them and be like, hey, Do you guys do perk tests? Cool. How much are they? Okay. What's your lead time? And just asking those simple questions. For if you're trying to find out a information on utilities and it's in a city, you're calling the municipality, because most of the time they're the ones that are providing that. And many times if you put in the keyword contractor services, those are the ones that are going to be giving you the how far is it to the closest water main or something of the sort. And so that's really that APS. You could put in APS contractor services and then put in your area. For me, I put in APS contractor services Prescott. And even if it was Prescott Valley, Dewey, whatever, I know they're going to be kind of having their hub there in Prescott. But if, say, if you're getting into a wild card, say where I live right now, the water is through a private water company. That's where you kind of have to call, say, Prescott Valley Water Company and be like, hey, how far is it to the local junction? They're going to be like, well, you need to call Jacobs, and Jacobs will tell you how far that is. And so sometimes you have to jump through 2, 3, 4 hoops to finally get to that sector. And many of those service providers, they actually kind of have relationships with others. So I go and look up Apache Junction Septic, and they're like, no, we don't do that. But you might want to call ABC Septic because they handle that, even though we don't. So that's one thing that always ask for referrals if you're being told no.
Is there a land advisory like we have for buyers?
No, actually the buyer advisory covers much of your land stuff. Because the buyer advisory does reference many parts of the additional clause addendum and such. And what you find in the additional clause addendum is much like what you find in the vacant land purchase contract. And what you don't find, you're going to be reading a whole lot more in detail when it comes to the vacant land seller's disclosures. They have revamped those a ton over the last year or two, and where, I mean, if they combine 3 or 4 separate documents that weren't even a part of contracts, you really had to be very knowledgeable of what went in and what didn't. Now, it's made it a bit easier on that.
Okay. So essentially, guys, over in the beginning, best rate home loans, Ricky and George just cover one. Best rate covers land loans, 100K to 750. So scream it and shout it to the world, because people are wanting land. So it's a great way to generate leads for maybe people are thinking about it, and you have a referral of a lender who can help them get this particular loan with the criteria that Ricky just reviewed. And then 2, knowing the differences on representing both parties. There are some different documents, and there's a lot of homework for the buyer. It's surprisingly enough when it comes down to land. So I think it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air there. However, referring them to particular parties, such as the ones that Lee mentioned earlier, you have to kind of have at least a few to refer, no different than any other vendor like title, lenders, home inspection companies, and the list goes on, right? So if this is a service you want to offer, definitely knowing the criteria on one, how to get a loan. A lot of people do essentially buy cash, who work with land is what I see a lot. However, it's great to know that they can finance it. And then 2, what is the homework of the actual buyer of the land, and what referrals do I have to send them? And then the 4th one, I would highly suggest reading in depth that buyer advisory, because it just doesn't cover your traditional buyer homework, but especially for the land people. And this can also give you a direction on where to start. It's like, oh, my buyer's most likely going to ask me about this particular little box in the buyer advisory. Now I'm going to kind of go on the next one. So when it comes down to listing land, anything on that end, Lee or George or Ricky, from, on the listing end, buyer sends in a offer with a pre-qual, we sometimes have our go-to questions on what to ask the lender, whether or not this is, a creditable, that this is a good, strong loan. What are the key things to look out for on the listing side of things? Because not to say listing the land is a little easier than even representing the buyer, but you do have to be kind of that much more prepared on having a strong buyer on it if it's outside of cash. But what would be any suggestions or tips? Because we do have a lot of agents in our brokerage alone that are currently listing land.
Yeah, no, same as what you would look for in a residential. I would more so want to know that funds have been sourced, that assets have been verified, right? That they actually have the money for the down payment. And then also, if credit's been verified, to ensure that they meet that 660 credit score.
Yeah, having that knowledge on that side of it is definitely a ace in the hole, because land, especially with buyers and on the listing side of it, there is a lot of that question mark because you're getting screenshots of random banks and you don't know with that. So having a strong prequal is great. Sometimes even finding out how fast and that appraisal can be done because of how quickly you are aiming to get that loan closed. Just that knowledge might be a extra ace in the hole to present with that prequal and such. And as far as listing, all the stuff that you as a buyers are wanting to have information on, as a listing agent, you're going to be receiving those phone calls from agents trying to take the easy way out. How far away is power? How's the easements? How's this? How's that? Honestly, I probably spend 2 days of research if I'm going into an area that I haven't really done before and it's not readily available. I have, again, parcels that they have issues with easements, they have issues with mining past, and you're going into patents and all sorts of stuff. So it really depends on it. If you're listing a property in the subdivision, you're going to know if you have power, electricity, and all that. One of the other agents, I want to say is Linda, that she was listing a piece of land that had was next to a golf course and had a previous lake from the golf course on it. And so those are the type of things that really you start getting those fine little questions on. And so just try to do your best to have that information and do your homework. So you're the professional. We are the best agents. So we want to be going above and beyond just somebody that's going to be doing the 3 Ps of listing a property, that's putting a sign up, putting it on the MLS and praying. We want to be doing more than the 3 Ps. And so, and that's where you are going to elevate yourself. You're going to get those referrals. You're going to build your business and land. I was telling one of my agents, Joshua, how one listing has turned into 5 or 6 on the buyer side, just because it attracts the people. And then I'm able to use my professionality to expand to the property that they truly need. So that's where just having your I's dotted and T's crossed can take you to the next level.
Haley, I had a question in regards to land deals and the way that it's zoned. When we have potential clients that are interested in a property, for example, my clients wanted to build a barndonium. So I had never heard of that, but power to them. They want to try building that. But when we're looking at what should we be looking at on the MLS, and what kind of things might pop up, like potential use, zone presently?
Right. The kind of abstract things like barndominiums, or I've seen people wanting to do container homes, everything that you see on HGTV and all that other stuff. It's the abstract. the biggest thing is making sure that really that they have been in contact with a builder that can actually pull this off. Because they are going to have to be doing a lot of their own research on there's some counties and cities and municipalities that are more friendly to this than others. Because I know Yavapai County, if you get a stamp from an engineer that all these Connex boxes will be put together in such a way with X, Y, and Z engineer standards that it can be a habitable and structural home. But if it is just some hillbilly put in together with a TIG welder, then it's not going to be there. So really, you need to be talking with a professional, preferably somebody that has done it, and that they will be a great asset and save a lot of your headaches, and encourage them to find that on the front side of it. And then because they might be able to tell you don't want to be trying to go in Tonopah. They might be encouraged to be doing that barndominium in Avondale, or just getting into Maricopa County itself and not dealing with any of the overlays of city and municipalities. So that's something that it can be a lot of work. On the flip side of it, you can be trying to do your homework and calling those different municipalities and be like, hey, I got clients that are looking to do a barn dominium. Is that something that you guys are seeing and approving?
Okay. So as long as it says, but like when it says single family, what can't go on a single like if it was zoned for single family, what couldn't go on land? That
I mean, businesses, obviously. But even like if you have I'll use some zoning that is up here. Each city, each county has different symbols and layouts of their zoning. So there's R1, which is residential and one family unit, or there's R2, which is residential, but you can have two family units. Expand that to 4. R4 would be for fourplex. Now, if it's R1 and I see that, then I'm going to start going, oh, we might be able to put a manufactured or a site built on here. If it's R1L, then that is going to be limited, which then dictates that it can't be it can only be a site built home. You're not going to be able to do a manufactured on there. And then you have that continuance and the question marks of how crafty can we be? Can we do a modular? Because those are technically assembled on site. So if you start getting into a neighborhood that has certain guidelines, then you start getting into the CCNRs, you start talking to Kelly and trying to find those fine nuances of every single property. So for a barn dominium, I would be trying to go with a broadest spectrum, what you can do the most with, which is normally like RCU. Up here it's called RCU 2A, which is a 2-acre lot that you could do most nearly everything on.
So it's where would we be able to get that information, like up here in Phoenix?
In the MLS, you will be having the zoning, and then from there you can go, say you're looking in Phoenix and the zoning is RCU. You go into Google, you go Phoenix zoning RCU, and then it should take you to probably a 400-500 page PDF.
Yeah.
And then you go find the zoning information and read that description. And then you share that to your clients and let them try to decipher it. And because you don't want to be that ultimate source, you want to be the source of the source. And if you guys all feel that that is proper, then you will contact the Phoenix contractors or zoning people and confirm. And then I'd start writing that contract.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
You had me going until you hit this part. So, so great question, Susan. Or Erica, sorry.
Yeah, I know, it's scary until we got to this part.
Yeah, no, once you start knowing more and more of the little specifics, like I've memorized a lot of what you can and can't be doing. So many people want to bring their fifth wheels up here to Prescott and have just a piece of land that they could park on and camp on during the summer, or live out of it for 2 years until they build their dream home. Yavapai County is not a friend to that type of living. And so you have to give them that hard news of, no, you can't do that. If you want to do it anyways, you're at the risk of having a lot of citations. It is essentially driven by complaints from your neighbors. So if you get in an area to where there are no neighbors, you might get a little bit more success. But ultimately, it is at the risk of yourself. Those are the type of hard things that you have to tell your clients, or that that barn dominium, unless if they're working with a contractor, they might not get approved. If they try to do things aside the book and just throw up the walls and then start putting in walls on the inside and say it was a garage and it was otherwise, they might be running into lots of issues with building and zoning and resale in the future. Those are the type of things that you have to have the straightforward conversations with, and kind of have to be the professional in that way.
Okay, Lee, and you said just to double check once we go through Google and look up what type of zoning it is. You said to run it past who again? What type of?
Once you've kind of have zeroed in a property that has a zoning and you've read the zoning and you have seen that it will probably work, contact the construction services department.
Okay.
They normally have departments at every single municipality or the county that will be able to give you those answers, and they might be able to recommend neighboring ones, because if they're saying no, they might know where people have gone otherwise to make that work.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Lee. So for anyone who wants to seriously take land as something that they can offer as a real estate agent, I would highly suggest taking notes and having cheat sheets on everything that's been discussed in today's workshop and in the previous workshops that Lee has hosted. We will be hosting another land workshop within the next few weeks in the bootcamp course outline. So this is a subject that is going to take time. I think the unknown is what might scare us or intimidate us, but even as simple as like, how do I find out who checks how far the electricity is? It's just one of those things where you really have to do your research. And Lee himself said he's invested days into research when he lists land sometimes. So that's kind of what's involved with it. So it's not something that's if you want to like shy away from it, we have land experts here, Lee being one of them, or specialists, I should say. Or you can always kind of buddy up with agents who have listed land before. Finding land for commercial is probably its own thing. It'll probably get us into a whole other subject. So we'll leave that one day. We'll buddy up commercial and Lee one day, because can you imagine those two things? Like, I don't think about commercial, I don't think about land, but I got a client, I can make 40 grand. I'm going to wing it. So that's where, by doing some of this prep work now it's like cooking, right? You want to do all your pre-work and your prep work, so when the dish comes out, it's perfect. And you don't want to wing this throughout the process. This is an investment of your client, and we are providing all the building blocks. But as you know, in real estate, everyone has their own process, their own preferred partners, and you just kind of build the blocks, or you build your land blueprint on how you're going to, 1, generate leads, 2, represent your buyer to its fullest, and then 3, know somewhat of the ins and outs, how to really do your due diligence in representing your client, of course. And of course, it comes down to the loan, and it kind of circles back to people who are interested in buying land. We're finding a lot of agents who are inquiring about helping people find land so that the client can put a manufactured home or an RV while they build a home. And like Erica and Lee just went on the R1, the R2s and R3s and all that jazz, that's kind of where it's very important to know whether or not it's zoned for that type of scenario per se. But Sergio, I know you've listed land before. Ms. Linda Dubois, Xenia has the land listed. David's probably listed land before. Anything from you guys? Any tips or questions? Maybe unique scenarios that you face, or like, if I wish I would have known this, that you could probably share with the group watching this later on or watching it now?
I think land is probably the most complicated thing out there. Thank God for Lee. I just think it's super important that your buyer, to his point, does their due diligence, because there's so many different things. And, people are always inquiring about land. I'm going to buy land and build on it. And they don't realize that you need electricity, you need sewer, you need water. So I just feel that you really have to do your due diligence. And I love that we have experts at the office now that have been there that can answer questions, because it's kind of nerve-wracking, to be honest.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Linda. Yep. Linda said what we all feel about land. So contact Lee if you have any questions. But Ricky or George, any recap or any last minute notes to add in regards to the land loan workshop?
I would
Yeah.
say, this isn't going to be for everyone, but and it has its nuances, to Linda's point, but we can get it done, and we can get it done relatively quick. And we have a ton of resources. I don't have all the answers for land. It's not something I do every single day, but I know people that do. So if you agents have specific questions or need clarity on anything, like, reach out and we'll get those answers for you.
Yep, absolutely. And if you ever want to jump on a call, both of us are available, or partner up to do any type of marketing. We're also available for that. One thing I didn't touch on as far as highlights, that as far as debt to income ratio on these, looks like we can go up to 55% for DTI for these loans.
That's pretty good. All right. And then George, you're going to get back to us on what Lee asked earlier.
Correct. Yeah, we'll have that by the end of the day. Probably
All right.
sooner.
All right, guys. Well, stay tuned for the future boot camp courses. One suggestion I do have, because we cover a lot of different pillars, like I started the call earlier. I'm a very visual person, if you haven't noticed, but I want to get to the point where I have like the tools that I feel comfortable with. It's almost like your toolbox. We always reference a toolbox, and the bootcamp speaks to that the most, on how to learn how to use the basic tools that I must know, or like David says, the foundational tools, such as how to write a contract, right? Land is one of those things where you want to either you get ahead of it, or you kind of just get into the tornado of it, or you refer it out. For me personally, if I feel very uncomfortable in it, I most likely would refer it out. But if I want to get to the point where I do want to be able to take this type of lead, I'm going to start doing some of my homework now. So get just note cards, just index cards, and write down the pillars that you are the most comfortable with. Let's just say open houses. Let's just say online leads. And then there's the ones who I don't 100% know, and start kind of taking note of it, and pull out other tools that you are uncomfortable with or don't know, and go back and view the courses, or let us know. We can host a refreshment of the courses. Anything that's been taught these past 2 years has to be revamped and updated and revisited, because we've been practicing real differently these past 2 years. So if we think we're pretty good at it, believe it or not, life got a little spicier, and now we have to enhance our skill set again, or revisit what we used to do before these past few years. So just a fun little recommendation that I've personally just had a conversation with a few agents is let's write down the ones that you feel really comfortable with. What are the things left to still know in that particular pillar? How strong do you feel on it? It's almost like doing a self-evaluation. If we remember back in our corporate 101 jobs, right? Where we have to do a self-evaluation and how do we strongly feel about a particular subject. And anyone who's watching this land deal this past hour, I'm assuming that you are definitely wanting to learn more and kind of really familiarize yourself with this particular pillar. So contact the lenders over at Best Rate Home Loans, contact Lee and let them know if you have any questions that we weren't able to cover, maybe later down the road, like, I should have asked. Comment down below in our Facebook group so that we can actually also trigger and let everybody else know as well. But Lee, any last words of encouragement before we let the land specialists go for the day?
Yes, it is a scary thing, but land is one of those things that once you master it, doing normal transactions feels like a walk in the park. And so take it head on, because we always want to be growing. We always want to be better. And if you have questions, I am definitely here for you. And if I don't respond right away, I definitely will get back to you in a timely manner. So yeah, we are always here for you, and we want to see you succeed and become the best that you can.
Thank you.
You're muted, Melissa.
Sorry, thanks, Lee. For a last little challenge for everyone, if you are interested, is Best Homes does have a few land listings. A few agents on here do have a land listing or two. I would advertise it. Advertise if you're looking to get a loan. Message me today. Contact Tristan if you need some additional suggestions. But that would be something that if you really want to take this serious, advertise the land listing that we have here at Best Homes. Put your contact information and you'll be surprised how many people will actually reach out. Post on the Facebook groups. Post on 10 Facebooks today that you can help them get a land loan, and click on here for a few listings to view. And that's kind of a just fun little challenge if you are interested, because we have some land listings. But you all enjoy your Tuesday. Thank you so much. And please, 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 tomorrow we have a CE class, free CE class, general credit hours on credit repair is the subject here at the office. It is sponsored by a home insurance company and our go-to Best Homes title agency, powered by Magnus. Ms. Kelly will be here, and it's free. There's gonna be food, and we need people. So if you if you want free CE credits or want to learn more about credit repair, come by the office here tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll see you all tomorrow, and enjoy your day. Thank you so much, Lee, Ricky, and George, for your time today on teaching today's boot camp.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.